Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first video of 2026. If you guys remember, I've asked you a question about what story should I read at the beginning of this year. One of you suggested me that I should read about the season 4 of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. I've actually found 2 stories on Koadev about season 4. One of them is called No Ordinary Life, and the other one is called Orikawa's Adventures, first book. I've been actually thinking to make a voting post so that you guys could choose which one of them should be first read by me. But after some discussion with my best friend, Brie Universe, we've actually decided that the first story that's gonna be read by me is gonna be No Ordinary Life. This story is written by the whatever writer Jupiter's Magic. It has 47 chapters and 298 pages. Its description says as follows. After Doma has disbanded, our favorite bikers want an ordinary life, but with a crazy neighbor, explosives, pranks, made-up diseases, and trouble in the dating area. Can they have a normal life? Are you ready to hear the story? Let's get into it. Chapter 1, Aftermath. So, now what? Do know, mates, an Australian voice replied honestly. I'm not the master planner, you know. It's all over, a gruff voice said. We need to move on. Sky looked up at her 3 companions, 2 men and a teenager, as they stared out at the open road. Her hazel eyes went back and forth between the 3 of them, watching the expressions on their faces carefully. Valen, the youngest of them, had the most emotion visible on his face. Compared to his older companions, the Australian had always been the most vocal and open of them. His blue eyes, normally glowing with a cheerful light, were considerably dulled. As a fairly strong wind blew past them, his fluffy brown hair was tossed about. Raphael looked straight ahead, his face giving almost nothing away of his thoughts. There was a subtle tightness about his jaw, and his facial expression was grim. His blonde hair was too short to be blown around by the wind. The final member of their group was a quiet young man who had barely said anything in the past 10 minutes. His features stoic as a statue. There might have been something in his gray eyes, but whatever it was, Sky could not interpret it. His red hair was being tossed gently in the dying breeze. As for her, she was content enough to just watch the 3 men as snatches of memory went through her mind. Since the day that all 4 of them had been brought together. She had spent most of her time with them. The idea that they would soon be going their separate ways actually frightened her. "Where are you all going to go?" Raphael asked at last, breaking the silence as he looked at the three of them. "I'm not going back to Australia, that's for certain," Valen said with a forced laugh, looking absolutely miserable despite of his efforts. "I don't know either," Alistair said, not looking at them. "I'll probably just wander around for a while. It's not like I have a place to go back to anyways." "What about you, Raphael?" he continued, fixing the oldest of them with emotionless gray eyes. "I'm not sure yet either," said the blurry man after a brief pause. "I might go back home to France, though. I won't be going to my relatives anytime soon. Sky, do you know what you're going to do?" Sky did not immediately hear his question, still caught up in her thoughts. Raphael repeated his question a little more firmly, and she snapped out of it. "Sorry, Raphael. I wasn't paying attention," she apologized. "Obviously," snorted Alistair, rolling his eyes and showing the faintest hint of exasperated amusement. "Oi, Alistair!" Valen snapped indignantly. "There's no need to be so nasty." "It's Alistair. Tur, not tar. Get it right, dweep," retorted the redhead boredly. Sky shook her head, a small smile appearing on her face despite of herself. Remembering Raphael's question, the smile slipped off her face, and she turned to the eldest of them. "I'm going back to live with my parents," she said quietly. At Sky's comment, both of the other bikers paused, forgetting the argument. The emotionless mask on Alistair's face returned, and Valen looked visibly dejected. "So this is really it then?" asked Valen unhappily. "We're just gonna go?" "Looks like it," said Alistair curtly. Sky bit her lip and looked away from them, struggling not to cry. "What's wrong?" Raphael asked Sky almost immediately, the grim expression on his face sliding off and being replaced with a concerned one. That was the quality she liked best about him, she decided absently. Despite his tough appearance, he genuinely cared about the people around him, and he always seemed to know when something was wrong with Sky. I don't want to be separated from you three," she burst out, startling them. "I spent too much time with you guys to just simply walk away. You can't tell me that you aren't feeling the same way. You guys don't even know what we're going to do from here." "She's right, you know," said Valen quietly, looking up at the other bikers. "I mean, I don't have anyone but you blocks as a family, and I don't have a place to go back to. Isn't there some way we can stick together?" "We could find a way," Raphael said slowly, though he seemed to be relieved. Sky wondered if all three of them had wanted to stay together to begin with, but had said nothing about it, likely uncertain of their other comrades' intentions. "We don't exactly have enough money to buy a house, though, and after spending a good portion of the past few years in an apartment, I'm not crazy about sharing quarters with 3 people, said Alistair. Even if we combined our money, I don't think we've had enough. Sky frowned, thinking over their options. Seconds later, she remembered something, and her eyes lit up, a smile beginning to grow on her face. I think I have the solution to our problem, guys. What will that be? My stepdad has 2 vacation homes in Domino. He only uses one of them. The other one he rents out occasionally. He told me once that if necessary, I could use it as long as I moved in with a couple of people. It's a 4-bedroom place and really spacious. We can go there if you 3 want to. I'm in, announced Valen almost immediately. What about you, Blocks? The 2 other men glanced at each other. Alistair merely shrugged, though his shoulders seemed to lose some of their rigidity, and Raphael gave Sky a small but genuine smile. They did not say anything, but the looks on their faces clearly spoke their answers. Sweet, she said, pumping her fist in the air. Let me call him to book a flight and to let him know what I'm doing. Be right back, she continued, taking out her cell phone and walking a good distance away from them. She dialed her dad's number, and a few seconds later, there was a click on the other end of the line. Hello? Hi, Daddy, she said, smiling at the sound of his voice. Oh, sweetie, thank God you're all right. We haven't heard from you for so long, and we were about to call the police. Where are you? I'm in Florida, and I'm all right, she said, hesitating for a moment before adding. I would have told you sooner, but I had a job opportunity come up, and I had to leave right away. It's over now, though. I'm sorry I never called you, but the job was intense. She wondered if he would accept that explanation, but it seemed that he would. I'm glad you're all right. You're coming home now? Kinda. Hey, Dad, listen. You know that extra vacation home in Domino that we never use? Yes. Why do you ask? Can a couple of friends and I stay there? They don't have anyone, and they have no place to really go. Please? There was silence on the other end before her father replied, Of course, sweetheart. Also, can you book us a flight? She asked hopefully. I was just doing that, he said with a small laugh. There, the flight is booked, and it leaves in 2 hours. Do you have any luggage? Yeah. We also have motorcycles. Is there any way to transport them? Motorcycles? Her dad repeated in shock. What type of people are these friends of yours? Relax, Dad. They're some of the nicest guys around. If they did hurt me, though, you have every right to maim them. I'll hold you to that, sweetie. Anyways, the airline can transport the motorcycles as well, though it'll be on a separate flight, and it may take a while until you get them again. You'll have to take a taxi for a while. I have to go, honey, but I'll see you soon. Bye, Daddy. Love you, she said brightly, hanging up the phone before practically skipping back to the bikers. What did your father say? Asked Raphael, raising an eyebrow as she continued to skip. He said that it's all right and that our flight leaves in 2 hours, she announced. The motorcycles are going to have to go on a different flight, but other than that, we should have no problem. Sky skipped over to her motorcycle and began humming as she pulled her helmet over her face. "You guys coming?" she asked, her voice muffled by the thick padding of the helmet. The three men exchanged brief looks with each other and got onto their bikes, the vehicle's engines revving up as they followed after their female partner. "Home sweet home," Sky said cheerfully, extending her arms outward as they exited the terminal. "Our bikes won't be in for a couple more hours though, so I guess we'll have to wait around." Alistair sighed. "It will figure. Maybe we should have sent Valen with the motorcycles. At least then my side wouldn't be so bruised." "I hate long flights," grumbled Valen. "We were all packed in there like sardines." "I'll be glad to be able to sit down without hunching over," said Raphael, stretching his arms with visible relief. When they collected their bags and exited the airport, however, they received a surprise. Their motorcycles were sitting all in a row nearby one of the doors. Next to them was a man in the airport uniform with short brown hair. "I thought they weren't supposed to be here for a couple hours," said Alistair, looking at Sky for an explanation. "Daddy must have found a way to make sure they got here when we did," she said, surprised. After handing the man their cargo ticket stubs, the man let them pass and they mounted on their motorcycles, their engines roaring to life. "Last one there is a rotten egg," Valen yelled, popping a wheelie before taking off. "Give it a rest, Valen. We don't even know where we're going yet," Alistair called after him, nonetheless going in the same direction. Sky glanced at Raphael, who honestly looked as if he wanted throttle the both of them. "How long do you think it's going to take before they realize that we aren't behind them?" "I'd give it 20 minutes, he said in amusement. "Oh, joy, we're gonna be here for a while, aren't we?" she asked sarcastically, leaning against her bike. After waiting for a good 15 minutes, the two other bikers finally came back, arguing as usual. "How come you didn't know where the hell we were going?" Valen demanded of Alistair as he came into earshot. "You're the one that took off. I merely went after you to get you back here," Alistair retorted, crossing his arms as he looked at the other two. "Thanks for not leaving us," he said, addressing them with his comment. They both nodded to acknowledge it. "Come on, we need to get going before it gets too late. I'm getting tired," Sky said, getting on the motorcycle and starting up the engine. After spending the next few hours settling into their new home and getting the necessary groceries, Sky sat herself down onto the sofa with a book. Valen was on the floor playing video games. Alistair was in the shower, and Raphael was looking for a job on the nearby computer. "You sure you don't want to play?" asked Valen, waving the video game enticingly at her. "I'm sure, Valen," she replied, not looking up from her book. "Besides, you're only rotting your brain." He merely shrugged and went back to playing. The doorbell rang a few minutes later, and Sky went to answer it. She got a pleasant surprise. "Daddy!" she squealed as she hugged him. "Hi, Sky," he replied, eyes softening in relief. "I wanted to come check up on you and make sure you were okay." His gaze then shifted over to Valen, who had come into the hallway to see who was at the door. "Is that your boyfriend, Sky?" he asked, looking to her for an explanation. Her mouth dropped open. "No, Dad. He's one of the ones I told you about over the phone." He just stared at her, waiting for a further explanation. "Come on in," she said, dragging him inside. "So, Dad, this is Valen. He's from Australia." "Hello, how you doing today?" he said, offering a hand hesitantly. Her dad, being the gentleman that he was, shook it firmly. "Pleasure to meet you," he said, looking at Sky and then to Valen with a contemplative gaze. "Who was at the door, Sky?" Raphael said, coming out of the kitchen. "Dad, this is Raphael. He's another one of my friends staying here," she continued, noting the equally startled that appeared on their faces. "Raphael, this is my dad." "How do you do, sir?" said Raphael politely when he recovered. "Quite all right, thank you," her father replied with a hint of disbelief, a little bit intimidated by Raphael's size. "You said there were 3 of you. Where's your third friend?" "In the shower at the moment. But..." "Valen, you are so dead!" Alistair roared from upstairs. They all looked at Valen, who could not quite hide the amusement grin on his face. "What did you do, Valen?" Raphael and Sky asked in unison, briefly forgetting about Sky's father. "Payback," he merely said, fleeing from the room and into the kitchen to hide. Alistair stormed down the stairs, a hat jammed over his wet hair and water still soaking through his sweatpants and t-shirt. He did not immediately notice Sky's dad. At least, he didn't realize who was there until the older man said, "Thank God, Sky, you have at least one girl living with you." Alistair, who had almost passed them, almost immediately halted and wheeled on them. His gray eyes were narrowed indignantly, turning his glare on Raphael when the man let out a laugh. From somewhere out of sight, Valen also was laughing. Sky spoke up quickly, remembering all too well what happened to people who confused Alistair's gender. "Dad, that's Alistair. He's not a she," she said. "My bad," he replied, visibly embarrassed. "Alistair, this is my dad," explained Sky, sending the redhead a silent "don't kill him" with her eyes. "Nice to meet you," said Alistair curtly, though he was still bristling. "Where is that Aussie? He's dead when I find him." "What did he do to you now?" Raphael asked in resignation. Alistair then took the hat he was wearing off to reveal that his hair was no longer red. Instead, it was a murky brown. Valen was laughing even harder from the kitchen, and Alistair headed in that direction almost immediately. Raphael apologized to her dad quickly before hurrying after him, and Sky was about to go after them as well, until her dad stopped her. "Sky Maria!" I know that. They're not what you expected, but they're my best friends." "Why are you living with 3 men? 1 I can understand and 2 I can tolerate, but 3? "Because they have nowhere else to." "Are you pregnant?" "What kind of ridiculous question is that? I am not pregnant, she snapped loudly, indignant and embarrassed all at once. She heard Valen's laughter from somewhere else in the house, and she sighed. Please don't jump to conclusions. You raised me better than that, she said, lowering her voice so that Valen wouldn't hear them. Then why are you living with them? He demanded, crossing his arms. I told you, Daddy. They were all orphaned at an early age, and they don't have anywhere else to go. I met them at my job, and we all had to work together. They didn't want to split up, and I didn't want to leave them either. Her dad was silent for a while, contemplating over what she had said, while a tense silence hung between them. Fine, he said at last. I'll trust your judgment, Sky. You better not be sharing a room with one of them, though, because that's where I'm putting my foot down. Thanks, Dad, she said, hugging her father ecstatically. Do any of them work? He asked, raising an eyebrow at her, but ruffling her hair. Raphael is currently looking for one. Valen should be going to a community college sometime soon, and Alistair might get a job, she responded, stretching the truth a bit with Valen. She couldn't quite picture him going to any kind of school. Are they educated? Raphael and Alistair both have diplomas and bachelor's degrees. As she answered, the three bikers reappeared, Valen holding a stick up to his eye, and Alistair keeping an ice pack in place on his head. I don't even want to know, she sighed as she put a hand on her hip and looked at them. Now, her father started, I have something to say to you three boys, he continued, and all three of the men immediately straightened in place. Dad, she whined, turning pink. Don't do this. It's all right. Let your father talk, said Valen cheerfully, though he was watching the grown man tensely. Sky had told me about your situation, and while she's assured me that I have nothing to worry about, I still will be stopping by every now and then to check up on you. I also will be making sure that you aren't trying anything. Well, I believe you understand what I'm saying, and I expect that all three of you will treat her with respect. We understand, Raphael said reassuringly. Let me assure you that she's in good hands. Like I told you, Daddy, they're good people. They wouldn't do anything to deliberately hurt me. The only thing you have to worry about is if Alistair and Valen burn the house to the ground with all of their revenge pranks. I was just kidding, she added hastily, when her father immediately looked concerned. Sky's dad remained for a few minutes longer and asked a few questions about what Sky had been doing since she had left. But then he left, and the four were left alone in the house. I can't believe that he thought you were pregnant, Valen said, laughing. She felt her face turn red with embarrassment when Raphael and Alistair both looked at her in surprise. Smacking him upside the head, she ground down an indignant, "Shut up, Ozzy," before heading for the stairs. Jet lag's getting me, guys. I'm going to bed. I think it's time that we all went to bed. Valen, that meant you, Raphael said over his shoulder as he went up after Sky. A few days passed by, during which everyone further settled into their new home. There were minor retaliation pranks between Alistair and Valen, but beyond that, nothing overly exciting happened. It was not until the weekend hit when the three men in the house decided it was about time to get some different clothes. Most of theirs were designed for their during Doma days, and they needed some casual wear. "Are you sure you don't want to join us, Sky?" Raphael asked as he passed by the sofa. "I'm sure. I have to go to my other house and bring over a few of my things." "Where is your other house anyway?" "Not too far from here. I'll walk over and have my brother bring me back with my things. You three go on without me." "You sure?" "I insist, Raphael. Go have fun. I'll be fine. If you want, you guys can borrow my car. It'll be easier carrying your clothes back. Just don't scratch it." "If you're sure. Valen, Alistair, I'm walking out the door. Whether you're in the car or not, I'm leaving," he called over his shoulder, disappearing out the front door. "So you're living with roommates now?" Declan asked, hefting a box onto his shoulder. Her brother was only a few inches taller than she was, putting him at about 6 feet. His chestnut hair was always shaggy, and his emerald eyes were filled with a constant light. "Yeah, 3 of them," she replied as they shuttled boxes from the car to the house. She went and grabbed the last box just as her car pulled into the driveway. The boys were back. "Hey, Sky," Valen said, jumping out of the car and bounding over to her. "What you got there?" "A box," she said simply. "I'm taking it inside." "Are those all of the boxes? Is that your boyfriend, Sky?" Declan asked, coming outside again. "Why does everyone think he's my boyfriend?" "No, he isn't." "Valen, this is my brother." "Declan, this is one of my roommates, Valen." "Wait, roommate?" he asked, looking confused. "You're rooming with a guy? Dad allowed that?" "Yes." "Valen, come help us with your crap," Alistair said, coming around the car. "Dude, Sky, that chick is hot," Declan stated, grinning at his sister. "I'm a guy," Alistair said angrily, gray eyes instantly snapping onto Declan with a murderous light in them. "Oh, my bad. Sorry, dude," replied Declan, shrugging. Alistair glowered at him before pointedly turning his back and ignoring Declan. "That was Alistair, my second roommate. My third roommate is Raphael," she said, just as the man in question came past them. Declan looked up at the blonde, and she knew her brother was intimidated. Raphael seemed to sense Declan's unease. "I'm friendly, I promise," he said as he passed them. "Valen, go get your things." "All right," replied the brunette, grabbing his bags from the car and running inside the house. "Well, all your crap is in your room, sis. I'm off," Declan announced, getting into his car and backing out of the driveway. He waved at her before driving out of sight. "Sorry about what my brother said, Alistair. It seems the men in my family are blind." Sky apologized. "Next time I'm curb stomping someone," he replied irritably, walking to the house. Sighing, she followed the now pissed off redhead and placed the box she was carrying by the stairs, where Declan apparently left the last 2. "That's my brother. Never does all the work," she said, shaking her head. She lifted one of the boxes, only to drop it again due to Valen screaming and running downstairs. "There's a dingo in my room!" he wailed, hiding behind Raphael and shoving the man toward the stairs. "A what?" Alistair said, having overheard the boy shout. "There are no dingoes here, Valen." "Dang it," Sky said softly, suddenly realizing what it was that had scared Valen. "What do you know?" Raphael asked sternly, looking down at her. "Well, we might have another roommate with us." "Another roommate?" Alistair repeated, arching an eyebrow. "Hang on, guys," Sky said as a loud crash that came from upstairs. "Let me go get him. And Valen, stop muttering about a dingo." Sky disappeared up the stairs and went into Valen's room, where the culprit was lying innocently on the bed. "You're a stinker," she said affectionately as he leapt off the bed. "Come on, people want to meet you." Sky returned to the top of the stairs and looked down at them. "How do you guys feel about a dingo?" yelled Valen, pointing at the creature that had appeared next to her. "That's a dog, Valen," Alistair snorted. "Guys, this is Jasper," she said while she went down the stairs, Jasper going ahead of her to investigate the other three bikers. "He's a miniature Australian shepherd." "So he's from Australia?" "No, Valen, it's just a name." She looked at Raphael, who looked at Jasper with an uncertain expression on his face. "Why are we keeping a mutt here?" Alistair asked. She sighed. "My mother said that since Jasper is my dog, whenever I move out, he goes with me. As long as he doesn't chew any of my things, I'm all right with him," Alistair said with a shrug, getting up and grabbing his bags before going upstairs. She looked at Valen and saw him petting Jasper. "He's cool with me," Valen announced, scratching Jasper's stomach when the dog rolled over. "Raphael?" Sky tapped the older biker's shoulder when he continued to say nothing about Jasper's presence. He sighed. "I'm more of a cat person, but I'll make an exception since he's your dog," he responded with a small smile. "Thanks, Raphael," Sky cheered, jumping up and hugging the older biker. "You're welcome," he replied after a quick pause, hugging her back hesitantly while a faint blush crept upon his face. Valen noted this and filed it away for future blackmail as he continued petting Jasper. Sky let go and smiled at Raphael, quickly turning her attention to the dog. "Jasper, who wants to go for a walk?" she said, adopting a high baby tone-like voice. Valen almost immediately howled in laughter, nearly falling on the floor. "What?" she asked him after she clipped the leash to the dog's collar. "That voice was hilarious," the Australian gasped in between breaths. "Do it again." She rolled her eyes and opened the front door. "I'll be back later, guys. Try not to blow anything up," she said, closing the door and leaving the others in the living room. Chapter 2. Here's Mesha. "Come on, Valen. Let's put our stuff away," said Raphael once Sky had vanished from view. "All right," he replied to the blonde once he was done laughing. Wasn't Sky's voice hilarious? I've never heard her sound like that before. "I'll take your word for it," stated the blonde as he began up the stairs. Once they reached the top of the stairs, They each took direction into their respective rooms. Unfortunately, Valen didn't see the box of dog stuff that was left in the middle of his room and ended up tripping on it. The loud noise caused not only Raphael to see what the problem was, but also woke up the redhead. "What the hell, Valen?" Alistair growled. "Is it impossible for you to not get into trouble?" "Sorry, the Sheila left a random box in the middle of my room. How was I supposed to know she did that?" "Don't you have eyes?" "Valen, don't go blaming Sky for this. The clan probably made a mistake and carried it to your room," Raphael said with a sigh, shaking his head. "How do you know?" "When we pulled into the driveway, I saw the clan carrying in a box that had the words "dog stuff" clearly written on the side." "Sure you did. How do we know that you're just trying to cover Sky?" "Why would I?" "'Cause you like her," Valen declared bluntly, getting up and moving the box into the hallway. "Don't we all?" replied Alistair, folding his arms. "She's likable enough." "Raph likes her, though," said Valen matter-of-factly, and Raphael turned a very slight shade of pink. "That's ridiculous," stated the blonde, folding his arms over his chest. "What's ridiculous?" Sky shouted up from downstairs, having returned from her walk with Jasper. "Nothing," the three bikers said quickly in unison. "I'm going to the kitchen," Valen started, as Raphael disappeared back into his room, but got cut off by Alistair's horrified cry. "No, you're not," said the redhead, yanking Valen back into his room and blocking the door. "What the hell, Alistair? I just wanted a soda." "You know the rules about the kitchen. Raphael banned you, remember?" "That was back at Doma, Alistair. As long as he's just getting a soda and maybe something non-cookable to eat, like chips or something, then he's allowed," Raphael called from his room. "Thanks, Raph," Valen chirped, going downstairs. Seconds later, another loud crash emanated from downstairs, this time coming from the kitchen. Sky hurried into the room to find out what happened. "What did you do, Valen?" Sky asked once she saw Valen sprawled on the floor, pots and pans scattered all over the floor. A once full cardboard box gave her all the answers that she needed. "The clan," she muttered, helping the tin up. It was a typical rainy day in November for the four bikers. Raphael was at his new job in downtown Domino. Alistair was reading a book in the living room, and Sky was watching one of her programs on television. No one knew where Valen was, but the two of them ignored that. "I don't see what the big deal is about this show," Alistair said. "It's just like every other high school soap opera." "That may be, but I find that Dick Gracie is not like other TV shows." "Why is that?" "'Cause it's the only show that includes drug issues, teen pregnancy, and transgender teenagers. It mixes everything that can go wrong with teens into one great episode." "Now it just sounds like a soap opera to me. It's stupid," he replied bluntly, looking back down to his book. "Well, I didn't ask you for your opinion," Sky retorted, returning her gaze to the television. "I'm back," Raphael called as he entered the house, coming into the living room to see who was there. "What are you two doing?" "I'm reading, and Sky is watching a dumb teenage soap opera." "It's not stupid, Alistair. Adults also watch it," she snapped defensively. Where's Valen at? Raphael asked, shaking his head at the two in the living room. We don't know, Alistair replied with a careless shrug. It's been pretty quiet all afternoon. And this didn't bother you at all? Alistair shrugged again. As long as he isn't bothering me, I'm happy, he said dismissively, once again reading his book. It was then that the Australian came in through the back doors. Hey fellas, Raph, you're back, he announced, taking his shoes off. What have you guys been up to? Nothing much. You've been awfully quiet today, Sky said, turning off the TV and sitting back on the couch with Alistair. Jasper came down the stairs and padded over to Valen, tail wagging. I've been out and about today. Wanted to explore, you know, he replied, patting Jasper, who sat down at his feet. Uh-huh. Alistair put his book down with a slightly disbelieving gaze. Probably pulling pranks on the neighbors. No, I wasn't. The neighbors are nice. Sky blinked when she noticed something started to move on top of Valen's mess of brown hair. Then what's that on your head if you haven't been doing anything? She inquired as Raphael came down the stairs in jeans and a t-shirt. Valen sighed and took the thing off of his head. He grabbed it in his hands and started to pet it. When a small meow sounded through the room, Sky paused and Jasper cocked his head, looking up at Valen curiously. Please tell me that's not what I think it is, Sky said, getting up and heading over to the tin. Looking at his hands, she realized he was holding a small kitten that appeared to be around 2 months old. What? The other two bikers asked, walking over to investigate as well. They were handing out kittens on the street corner for free, Valen muttered sheepishly. If the kids didn't get rid of the kittens, their parents were gonna take them to the pound, he added defensively, crowding the cat to his chest. The pound's no better than a prison for animals and this tag's too small for that. The little bundle of fur began to move around impatiently in Valen's hands and mewed again. Raphael held his hand out for the small cat, and Valen reluctantly relinquished it to him. The small cat was white, with small black spots decorating its fur. Its eyes were a very poor shade of blue. It's an Egyptian mouse, Raphael announced after a few minutes were spent investigating the cat, causing the 3 other bikers to look at him with some surprise. How do you know this? I mentioned it earlier that I like cats, he said, shrugging. I've been more of a cat person my whole life. Is it a boy or a girl? Dunno. I was hoping one of you 3 would know, responded Valen. It's a girl, Alistair said, looking over Raphael's shoulder at the kitten. Don't ask if you don't want to know. So, can we keep her? Asked Valen hopefully. I don't know, Sky began, taking the small cat from Raphael and petting it absently. I don't mind, and I don't think Jasper will have a problem with it. I thought Dog always hated cats, Valen pointed out with some confusion. True. There are some dogs, however, that tolerate cats, and Jasper has been around cats his whole life, so he doesn't really care. My mom loves cats, so she has a couple around the house. Look for yourself. Look for yourself, Sky finished as she set the kitten on the ground. Jasper almost immediately headed over to the kitten and began sniffing at it curiously. Unafraid, the small kitten began rubbing against the dog and purred contentedly. When it was apparent neither party was going to attack each other, Sky looked at them proudly. "Told you so." "I've always liked cats," Alistair offered after a slight pause, looking at the three of them. "Having a cat during the war wasn't possible. I don't mind having one around, though." "It's up to you, Raph," Valen said, looking at the eldest. There was no need to plead with the blonde on the matter. "She can stay. However, she's going to need cat supplies like a litter box and food bowls." "Way ahead of ya, Raph," Valen stated brightly. The kids who gave her to me told me what I would need, and I went to the store already." "Can you go get them? I have a feeling this kitten's going to need a few things really quick." Just as Valen was about to leave the room, though, the lyrics to an unidentified song started playing and started them. Sky pulled out her phone and glanced at the caller ID, and that was when the others realized that it was her cell phone going off. "Sorry, it's my brother. Hold up," Sky said, answering the phone. "What do you want, Declan? I also want to thank you for the stellar job you did in putting the boxes away last time you were here." "You're welcome. And actually, it's not what I want. It's what Mom and Dad want." "Which is?" "They want you to host Thanksgiving this year." "What?" she nearly screamed, alarming the three male bikers, Jasper and the kitten. "You're kidding me, right? Please tell me you are." "Nope," he replied brightly. "Come on, why me? Why don't we do it like we did last year?" "Sky, last year's Thanksgiving was a horrible disaster. How can you not remember that?" "No, I do remember that. Who can forget you getting thrown out the window by a flying turkey?" she teased, giggling. "Not the point. Mom wants to meet your roommates, and she wants to see how the house is holding up." "Fine, we'll do it. On one condition, though." "What?" "You guys bring the turkey. There's no way I'm cooking it." "Why?" "Remember Valen? Things tend to blow up in the kitchen when he's around." "Cool. I'll let you know. See you in 3 days, Guy." "See ya," she said, hanging up. Noticing the silent question on all three male bikers' faces, she announced, "We're hosting Thanksgiving this year." "Yippee!" Alistair said sardonically, sitting on the sofa. "Does this mean we get to meet your family?" Raphael inquired. "Yep," Sky said, smiling. She noticed the odd expression that briefly appeared on the blonde's face, and she arched an eyebrow. "What's that look for?" "You mentioned something about the clan and the flying turkey. What was that about?" "I'll tell that story later. Now, changing the topic. What are we going to name this little lady?" "Misha's a reasonable name," Raphael said fruitfully, petting the cat behind her ears. "That works," Alistair said, not entirely focusing on the conversation. Valen and Sky nodded in agreement. "Why do you guys always expect me to make the final decision on things?" asked Raphael wearily. "Because you're the oldest," Valen said promptly. "And the saddest," added Sky brightly. Chapter 3. Turkey Day. Oh, Thanksgiving, the one day every year when people can reunite as one big family to celebrate each other's presence. It's a time to reflect peacefully and to remember all the things that you're grateful for. It's also a time to enjoy Turkey Day football or to experience the fine cuisine prepared by your family as they gather around. Unless, of course, you're in the home of the 4X Doma bikers, then normal gets bodily jacked down the door. To be fair though, it did start out like any other Thanksgiving. "Did you set the table, Valen?" Alistair asked over his shoulder as he finished preparing the sweet potatoes. "What? I was supposed to do that? I thought Rav was supposed to." "No, Valen, we specifically told you that you had to do it," Sky countered, coming back in with Jasper after finishing his walk. "You have to help out a little, Valen," Raphael said, coming down the stairs. He had changed into some nicer-looking jeans and a dark red polo. "If we're all living together, that means you have to pull your weight around here from time to time." "Fine, I'll get it," Valen grumbled, heading towards the kitchen before stopping in mid-step. "But how am I supposed to get the plates if I'm not allowed in the kitchen?" Sky and Raphael looked at each other, and Alistair groaned. "The ban's only in effect when you're in the kitchen unsupervised. Go get what you need to set the table," Raphael said at last, going into the kitchen himself to help Alistair with the food. Sky also went into the kitchen to grab a soda, and Valen followed after her. "There is one thing I want to say, though," Sky starting to walk out of the kitchen. "Your shirts have to cover your stomach entirely, Alistair." I know," he said, sticking his head out of the kitchen briefly before disappearing inside it. "Good," she said over her shoulder, heading up the stairs. "Valen, you need to dress better too." "What? Why? I dress fine," he said indignantly. "Right?" Raphael looked at what he was wearing, plaid board shorts and a tank top. "Valen, I don't think that the tank top is suitable for a family dinner with Sky's family. At least put on the t-shirt." "When is the family coming, Raphael?" asked Alistair as he finally emerged from the kitchen, turning to get an answer from his older friend. "Around 3. Valen, that means you better change now." It was 2:50, and Raphael was waiting with Jasper for the other 3 to finish up. Alistair was the first to emerge downstairs, wearing male skinny jeans and a plaid button-down shirt. "The other 2 aren't done yet. They're going to be here in 10 minutes, commented Alistair as he sat down. "I know, but not much I can do about it." Raphael shrugged, scooping up Misha and setting her on his lap. She immediately curled up into a ball on his lap, purring sleepily. "I'll be right down, guys," Sky shouted from upstairs. "Just getting shoes on. Damn boots won't go on." "So that just leaves Valen." "Figures." "They aren't here yet, right?" Sky asked, coming down the stairs. She was wearing a sleeveless purple dress made of a sheer-looking fabric with flowers and brown leather cowboy boots. She had applied a touch of makeup, and her light brown hair hung down. Raphael raised an eyebrow in surprise, noting her appearance before managing to reply. "No, they aren't. They will be soon, though. You look nice." "Thanks," she replied with a smile. "Where's Valen?" "Still changing," Alistair said, rolling his eyes. "I thought you would take longer, but clearly I was mistaken." "Valen, quit being such a girl and get down here already," Sky shouted at the top of her lungs, causing a scream and a loud hum come from the teenager's room upstairs. I'm coming. Sheesh," he called back, opening his door and storming downstairs. He was wearing khaki shorts and a dark green polo. Sky then noticed that the other two bikers were looking at her. What? Now to go over a few rules. Valen, no buzzing, and you're banned from the kitchen for the rest of the day. You are to also be on your best behavior as well. Please. Oh, come. You're giving me all of the rules and none to Ralph and Alistair. Because they aren't the ones who get into trouble in the blink of an eye. Sky shifted her gaze to Alistair and said, You? No bikering with Valen. I just want this to be a normal dinner, so please, 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 try not to fight. No offense, but the four of us aren't exactly normal. Gee, I didn't know that at all, Alistair. I was under the impression everyone else is crazy. Just as she was about to continue, though, she was cut off by the doorbell. Crap, they're here! Please don't screw this up, she concluded hastily, directing that last statement towards Valen. All right, Valen replied. Sky gave them a thumbs up, took a breath, and went to the front door to answer it. Hey, bro, she said, hugging Declan as he came into the house. Hey, sis, how's it? You do realize that Miley Cyrus wore that exact same outfit, right? Sky blinked and then facepalmed. I wonder why this looks so familiar. Crap, too late to change now. Alistair and Valen started laughing, and Raphael looked as if he was trying not to laugh. The next person through the door, too, was a woman who was in her early 50s. Her black hair was curly, and her blue eyes were staring straight at Sky, a warm smile immediately lighting her features. Hi, Mom, Sky greeted, hugging her mother. Sky, sweetie, it's been a long time. You had me worried sick when you vanished like that, she scolded, looking her daughter in the eye. I know, I'm sorry. Where are your roommates that I've heard so much about? She said, scanning the room intently. Sky sighed and motioned her mother to where the 3 male bikers were seated. Okay, Mom, this is Raphael, Alistair, and Valen. Guys, this is my mother. Raphael was the first to get up and held his hand out for a handshake. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure as well, she said, unfazed by his appearance as she accepted his handshake. Alistair got up next, offering his hand quietly to shake her hand. Glad you could come over, he said with a shrug. Thank you for having us over, dear, replied Sky's mother with a gaily laugh. You're a fine young lady. If this bothered Alistair at all, there was no indication of it on his face. Ma'am, it's a common mistake. I'm a man, not a woman. Oh, I do apologize, said the woman, looking embarrassed. It's all right, he reassured her. As I've said before, it's a very common misunderstanding. Hey, Mom, did you bring the turkey? Sky asked, looking at her mother. Oh, yes, I did. Declan, dear, go get it, will you? Aye, Captain, responded Declan with a salute before vanishing from view. Valen, don't you even think about it, Alistair and Raphael said in unison when the boy tried to follow after Declan. I just want to see it, that's all. Nice try. You stay put. So, do you 3 young men work? Sky's mother asked curiously. I work, ma'am. Valen is in college, and Alistair is looking for a job at the moment, Raphael answered. There's no need to be so formal with me. You 3 seem like charming young men. Call me Teresa. Excuse me, but I'm going to get a drink, Alistair said, making his way into the kitchen. Bring me back something, will ya? In your dream, Saucy, Alistair called over his shoulder, not turning back. Hey, Alistair, Sky said, looking into the oven. What brings you in here? Human needs dictate that I need something to drink, he said, opening the fridge. How come you're in here? Checking on a couple things and getting the oven set up for the turkey. Mom undercooks the turkey every year. Alistair raised an eyebrow, but left shortly afterwards with the soda in hand, and sometime later the clown arrived with the turkey in his hands. Surprise, surprise, Mom actually cooked it right this year, he said, setting it down on the counter. Need help? Sure. Can you take the bread out onto the table? I'll bring the yams and veggies, and then you can come back for the turkey. A few minutes later, everyone was sitting down at the table with the food in front of them. The bikers were on one side, while Sky's family was on the other side of the table. Misha and Jasper watched the proceedings with whole-life precision, waiting for someone to drop their turkey. Don't even think about feeding the animals, Valen, Raphael said sternly as he handed Valen's food-filled plate to him. I wasn't going to, Raph, he replied, instantly chewing down. Have you three been following the rules that I gave you? Sky's father asked, looking at the male bikers. Yes, Dad, Sky replied, rolling her eyes. And no problems, right? Teresa asked. No, Mom, nothing's come up at all. We're fine. The doorbell rang, and Sky looked at her mother questioningly. I'll get it. Did you invite anyone else? Oh, yes, your cousin. I forgot to mention he might be coming. Which one? She asked over her shoulder, going into the front hall and opening the front door. Oh, it's you, she said, staring in surprise. Oh, no. Why, yes, it's me. How kind of you to notice, the man retorted, walking into the house. You are more than welcome to come inside. Thank you for allowing me to invite you in, Sky replied sarcastically, closing the door and returning to the kitchen, her cousin behind her. Who was it? Alistair asked when Sky came back into the room. She shot him an apologetic glance and moved aside to let her cousin enter. Hello, Zero, her mom said cheerfully, welcoming the stranger. Alistair visibly bristled, his eyes narrowing almost immediately. Oh, great, it's you three again, Kaiba sighed, looking at Raphael, Valen, and Alistair. I thought you were still on your Take Over the World campaign. All right, you got us. We're starting with the turkey population first, Alistair said sarcastically, an edge to his voice. Zero, there's no need to bring that up now. That's over and done with. Please let it go for just a little bit, Sky said in an undertone. In a louder voice, she said, Now sit your money back ass down, please. Skylar Maria Kaiba, you don't speak to your cousin like that. Sorry, Mom, she apologized half-heartedly, sitting back down beside Raphael. So you're related to Kaiba, Alistair started disdainfully. How interesting. Skylar, you mean to tell me that your friends didn't know you were a Kaiba? Her father asked in visible surprise. That particular topic never came up, growled the redhead, and Raphael shot him a warning look. Seeing as how he hates me, I'm not surprised, Zero said, gesturing to Alistair as he took a seat and helped himself to the turkey. Shut up! Sky snapped, chucking a piece of bread at him and managing to catch him on the side of his face with it. It couldn't be because your company was responsible for what happened to my brother, muttered Alistair loud enough for Kaiba to hear. Save me the sob story and get over it, Alistair, Kaiba replied boredly. Alistair's eyes flashed invisible hatred, and not one of the three bikers liked the look on his face. Rather than lash out at Kaiba though, he rose from his seat and said curtly, I'm going to get some fresh air. Excuse me. The remainder of the table watched as the redhead stole from the room, and a few seconds went by before they all heard his bedroom door slam. Way to go, moneybags, Sky grumped, giving him her signature death glare. Kaiba merely raised an eyebrow before continuing on with his meal. Should someone go get him? Teresa asked, looking concerned. It's best if he blows off some steam, said Raphael with a sigh. He'll be back later. No worries, Raph. I'm finished anyway, so I'll go get him. Valen chirped, rising from his seat and disappearing from view. Idiot, his funeral, Sky muttered in resignation. She felt a pair of eyes on her and looked up at her father, who had a look of sudden realization on his face. Inwardly she groaned. Great, here come the questions. Sky, this job of yours that you disappeared for, was your boss trying to take over the world? He asked, looking at Raphael and his daughter for an explanation. Raphael seemed to realize how awkward this conversation was going to be, but any discomfort he had was very well hidden. Yes, sir, for better or worse, that was what we were trying to do, he responded, keeping eye contact. Declan grinned. I envy you. I always wanted to have a job like that, he said with a hint of jealousy in his tone, easing up some of the tension. Yeah, well, this was not your conventional take over the world gig, said Sky heavily, though she couldn't help but be amused. The four of us were helping a man named Darts resurrect an ancient monster from Atlantis known as the Leviathan. Kaiba rolled his eyes but said nothing, continuing to eat his dinner. Her mother looked surprised, and her father looked skeptical, while Declan seemed to be visibly impressed. How did you do that? They supposedly took people's souls as sacrifices, explained Kaiba flatly, finally entering the conversation. Her father and Teresa looked at the two of them in shock. But no one was killed, right? Asked her mother. Raphael seemed to hesitate for a moment before answering honestly. The people whose souls the four of us took didn't die, no. I can't say the same for those who were taken by Darts before we joined. I'm not sure what happened to those people. And anyways, once Yugimuro and his friends, including Zero, defeated both Darts and the creature, everything was over, Sky concluded. Why would you try such a thing? Asked Teresa, looking at Raphael. The material we were working with turned out to be brainwashing us. Darts tricked us all. By the time we realized what was happening, we were caught in Dart's scheme ourselves, Raphael said grimly, now looking visibly unhappy at the mention of Dart's betrayal. A long pause followed Raphael's explanation before Sky's father cleared his throat. Well, I can't say I'm proud of you almost bringing about the apocalypse, since it seems that all four of you were being tricked, though I can't say that your new roommates are bad people. Sky was about to say something when there was a scream and a loud thud came from the backyard. "What was that?" Louisa asked, alarmed. "That was Valen being pushed off the roof by Alistair. He must have done something to piss him off again." The others nodded their heads slowly, wisely deciding not to ask. "Sky, what is the story about the clan and the turkey?" Raphael asked, then changing the topic onto something other than Doma. "Well, hell no, Sky," snapped the clan. His sister ignored him. "Well, the clan was bringing the turkey out, and he didn't notice the dog sleeping on the floor in front of the dining room. The window is very close to the entrance, and we opened the window earlier. So the clan didn't see the dog and tripped over her, and he went flying out the window, turkey in tow," she said, starting to giggle when the clan sank in his seat. "But strangely enough, the turkey landed safely in its pot on the ground, while the clan landed in the thorn bush." "I hate you, Sky," the clan muttered when everyone else started laughing. "Your family seems like a nice group of fellas," Valen commented as he placed a bag of ice on his head. "They are," Sky said amicably. "I'm surprised that they took the Doma news so well," Raphael said, bringing more dirty plates into the kitchen. "I was wondering when they were going to blow up at us or call the police on us." "They're used to abnormal things. The one thing about my family is that they believe in all that magic crap that Doma was so full of. If I told them I was a witch, they'll use me to scare away the pranksters on Halloween. How was Alistair doing, Valen?" "I don't know. He pushed me off before I could ask him," the twin grumped, leaving the kitchen with the Mountain Dew in his hand. "Of course he will," Sky said, shaking her head. Realizing just what Valen had in his hand, though, she panicked. "Put down the dew!" "Never!" he gaggled, running out of the room. "The caffeine is mine, all mine. Mwahahaha!" "He found the soda again?" Raphael asked with something of amusement, bringing in the final 2 plates into the kitchen. "Yep," Sky sighed, looking at the older biker. "I need to hide it better." "Where was it this time?" Raphael inquired, beginning to clean off the plates in the sink. "My mini fridge," she shrugged, putting the leftovers of the pie in the fridge. "Not exactly a good spot to hide it." "Woo! I can fly!" Valen screamed from somewhere outside, completely cutting off Sky's reply. "Valen, you idiot!" Alistair shouted at the teen from wherever he was. "You're not supposed to jump off the roof." "Those two, I swear, were brothers in their past lives. That's the only reason I can think of that they were bikers so much," grumbled Sky under her breath. She set the last of the plates in the dishwasher and redirected her attention to Raphael. "Thanks for the help. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," he responded, placing the leftovers in the fridge. "I live here too, you know. Besides, unlike the other two, I don't take advantage of having a lady in the house." She gave the older biker a smile as she started walking to the kitchen entrance, having finished cleaning the kitchen. Unfortunately, Sky didn't notice the slightly damp dishcloth on the floor, and she stepped on it. The towel skidded and took her foot with it, causing her to fall backwards and let out an alarmed squeal. Raphael, who had been behind her, instantly moved forward to catch her, and she fell back against his chest. "Thanks," said Sky shakily. "Not a problem. You're all right?" asked Raphael, looking her over briefly to see if she was hurt. "No, I'm fine." At that point, they realized just how close they were to each other. When Raphael had caught her, he had been forced to use his body as a cushion, but as a result, their faces had ended up dangerously close to one another. They could actually feel each other's breath on their faces. Something flickered for a moment in Raphael's eyes when he looked down at her, and Sky could almost swear that it was... "Oi, fellas!" Valen said loudly from somewhere close by, causing the two of them to jump and separate just as the boy rounded the corner. "What is it, Valen?" asked Sky, flustered. Valen grinned widely, his eyes slightly crazed from the sugar. Do we have any ice cream?" he asked in a sing-song voice. "In the garage," Sky said, jerking her thumb toward the door. "Thank you," he called over his shoulder cheerfully, humming something nonsensical. "No problem. Wait a minute. You don't need any more sugar," Sky called after him, prepared to drag him away from the garage if necessary. Raphael cleared his throat, redirecting her attention to him. "I'll go check on Alistair. We haven't seen him in a while," he said, shifting uncomfortably. "And I might as well get Valen," she replied, equally uncomfortable. The two of them practically fled the room in separate directions, both hoping that the other had not seen the flush in their faces. Chapter 4. Untitled for now. "Is Alistair still on the roof?" Sky asked when Raphael came back down sometime later, sitting on the sofa with Jasper by her side. "Yeah, as long as he doesn't fall or jump, though, I'm content to just let him be. I swear, he's a monkey at times. Either that or a cat, though I hope not. If he is, we'll need the fire department to get him down." Raphael chuckled and went over to his recliner, reaching for his book and beginning to read it. Sky wondered if he was going to say anything about what had happened in the kitchen earlier. When 10 minutes passed and he still said nothing, she decided that unless he brought it up, she would not either. After all, she'd just been shaken by the fall and must have been reading things too deeply. That look in Raphael's eyes when he gazed down on her had not been that look. A knock on the door startled her out of her thoughts, but before she could get up, Valen slid down the banister on the stairs. "I got it." He opened the door and then blinked in surprise at the girl standing on their front porch. She had short orange hair with blonde streaks through it, and she was wearing a red hoodie and black cropped jeans with a pair of Converse sneakers. She seemed to be about 5'3", but either way, she was shorter than Valen. Deciding to be polite to their guest, he greeted her with, "What's up?" "You stole my cat," she announced, narrowing her brown eyes and pointing at Valen. He stared. "Huh? No, I didn't." "Why does my kitty tracker say he's in this very house?" she said, pointing to the little watch around her waist. Valen backed away from the girl. "We've got a girl kitty, not a guy kitty," he said, very much confused. "You sure that thing's working proper?" Raphael and Sky came up behind Valen to see who was at the door and eyed their guest curiously. "Who are you?" asked Sky. "I'm Amber, the crazy kid next door," she proclaimed proudly, beaming up at them. "And he is a cat thief," she continued, directing a hostile glare at Valen. Valen held his hands up defensively, looking at Raphael desperately. "I didn't take your cat, honest." From above them, Alistair's voice entered the conversation. Is the cat in question orange? Amber peered up, shading her eyes to look at where Alistair was, still perched on the roof. Yeah! Our kitten's white with tiny black dots. Your cat just left our house through an open window and went into the house across the street not even 5 minutes ago. Valen, you left your window open and the cat must have stopped by earlier. Get your facts straight, you little weirdo. Look who's talking, she-man, she shot back. Your head looks like a mushroom. Those are the best insults you can come up with? Ha! You look like a bleached version of Raggedy Ann. Amber eyed him sorely. At least I don't look like a she-male vampire. I think you're actually glittering up there. Valen started roaring in laughter, and Sky began giggling. Raphael looked as if he was trying to keep a straight face, but it didn't stop the smile from creeping onto his features. Amber grinned in satisfaction when there was no reply. Got him, she announced cheerfully. I better go get my cat before he gets into something else. Do you want to come in for a bit? Asked Sky. We've got some leftover pie if you want some. Amber shrugged. Sure, it's not like my cat's going anywhere anytime soon. If he is, I'll just use my kitty tracker to find him again. Does that thing even work? Asked Valen skeptically as she entered the house. It led me here, didn't it? She countered. Several minutes later, Alistair came downstairs and into the kitchen, apparently hungry. He had not eaten very much of his dinner when Kaiba had arrived, and Sky had saved his meal for later. He stopped when he saw Amber, and he scolded. Why is this carrot head in our house? He asked. Amber ignored him. Why'd you guys move here? We almost brought about the apocalypse by resurrecting an ancient monster by stealing people's souls. Then our boss got defeated, taking everything down with it, and we're here now to start over. Alistair summarized as he got his dinner out from the fridge. Amber was not fazed at all by this explanation. We're conquerors, huh? Yeah, I just finished a gig a while ago with my friends. We were going to blow up the population of Europe, take over the continent, and use its resources to battle other continents, and then eventually rule the world. We didn't have the resources, though. There was an awkward silence until Valence started laughing. That's pure genius right there, fellas. Why didn't we ever think of that? Stealing people's souls? Pegasus already did that earlier. Why wasn't ours more original? The other bikers stared at the Australian with wide eyes, realization sinking in shortly after he finished speaking. I can't believe it. You actually made sense. Are you really Valen? Asked Alistair in faint suspicion. Amber chose to smack Alistair over the head when he sat down, and the red-haired man whirled on her. Who the hell gave you the right to smack me? He almost snarled. I gave myself the right because I can, replied Amber cheerfully, taking another bite of her pie. I'm heading up, fellas, Lennon declared, walking upstairs with his pie slice. If one looked closely, they could see the evil look coming onto his face. Call me if you need me. Amber got onto Vallon's evil eye and grinned. Where can I find the bathroom? She asked in deceptive innocence. Downstairs to your left, Raphael replied. Thank you, she replied, already disappearing upstairs. Amber, however, followed Valen upstairs and walked into the bathroom up there in time to watch Valen putting hair dye in someone's shampoo. You can do better than that, you know, she said conversationally, startling Valen. Realizing she was a fellow prankster as well, Valen raised an eyebrow at her. How? By blowing it up, she said, reaching into the front pouch of her hoodie. A loud explosion came from the upstairs bathroom, causing the three remaining bikers in the kitchen to jump in surprise. After exchanging alarmed glances, they dashed upstairs to find out what was going on. Amber and Valen were sitting on the floor laughing, soot streaking their faces, and the remains of several firecrackers on the floor. What was left of Alistair's shampoo bottle was in a melted puddle at their feet, and shampoo had been sprayed all around the little room. "Who the hell gave Valen explosives?" Alistair snapped. "It's 4th of July all over again," Raphael and Sky said in unison. Chapter 5. Shopping Ideas. December came and flew by so fast that fairly soon there was only 7 days until Christmas. Until that point, though, the four bikers had been getting their house decorated for the holidays, buying a tree, gift shopping, and dealing with the occasional explosive that Amber slipped to Valen, and the odd prank here and there certainly made the time fly by. That morning found Valen already up and running, having decided to instigate a snowball fight with Amber. Alistair was the second one to wake up, seeing how as Valen had opened his friend's window and then had thrown a snowball through the window. It had landed on Alistair's face, scaring him enough to actually let out what could be termed as a scream. This, of course, woke up Sky and caused her to roll out of bed in a pile of blankets. The domino effect was complete when Raphael, hearing the curses coming from both Sky's and Alistair's room, got out of bed to investigate. "I'll kill him this time," roared Alistair as he came out of his room, shaking his head frantically to dislodge the snow in his hair. "Is that what happened?" asked Sky irritably. "Because I thought that, someone was dying. You screamed over that?" "I didn't scream. It was a manly yell." "It was a scream." There was a slightly muffled bam that caused the two of them to look at Raphael's room in concern. Realizing what happened, they padded down the hall and opened his bedroom door. They found him on the floor next to them, holding his head and grimacing in pain. "You walked into the wall again, didn't you?" Alistair asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Shut up," came the muttered reply. "I'll go get the coffee ready," Sky sighed, walking out of the room and downstairs into the kitchen. Raphael was a notorious non-morning person and did this at least once a week. "Hey, Raphael," the redhead started, helping the older biker off the floor. Now's as good a time as any. Is there something going on between you and Sky?" Raphael stared up at him oilishly, frowning as the question registered. "Not that I know of," he answered slowly. Alistair sighed. "I don't mean, have you guys fought in the past couple of days going on? I mean, are you harboring a crush on Sky going on?" The blonde paused. "I want coffee before I answer that," he said firmly, though his face flushed. Alistair smirked. Raphael only dodged questions like that when he was hiding something. "You do like her, don't you? And don't give me the 'she's like my sister' act either, because I know that's not it." A long pause followed this statement before Raphael sighed. "What gave me away?" "The signs were all there. You and Sky hung out all the time, even back in Doma. And lately, you two seem to be stuck together. Eventually, one of you will start harboring feelings for the other." "It's only been recent," he replied uncomfortably. "And anyway, I'm not going to do anything if it's one-sided. Look what happened with Valen and Mai." "I wouldn't be so sure if it's one-sided," Alistair said, arching an eyebrow. Sky's not as clever as she thinks she is. I've seen her watching you since Thanksgiving, and she randomly blushes when you two pass each other in the hall, or when you... So what do you suggest, oh romance guru? Get her something special for Christmas. Something that screams, I like you. Would you like to go out with me? Who's going out with who? Sky asked as she came back into view. No one, Alistair and Raphael answered promptly and simultaneously. I didn't mean to interrupt your meaningful discussion. I was just bringing Raphael up his coffee. By the way, Amber and Valen made a fort right outside your window, Alistair. I have a hunch that they're planning an attack. Crap, Alistair growled, scrambling out of the room and leaving Sky and Raphael behind. The two of them heard Alistair yelling at Amber and Valen, but whatever he said was obviously muffled by another snowball that hit him in the face. When Alistair yelled next, it was because the snowball happened to be made from yellow snow. Oh, Valen, Sky said, shaking her head in exasperation. Sleep well? She asked, directing the next comment at Raphael as she sat down on the bed. He lumbered over and took the coffee from her before sitting down as well. No better than usual. You? Aside from Jasper taking up most of my bed and nearly shoving me off the bed, I slept very well. Raphael chuckled. Jasper took up most of the bed? How? He sprawls himself out as far as he can and takes up the mattress. He was fine when he was a puppy, but now he's not so little. Raphael laughed as he drank his coffee. That's amusing, though, he said. Sky shrugged. Well, I'm going to go on down and get me some cereal, she announced, walking out of his room. The blonde watched her go and then let out a heavy sigh. Alistair returned several minutes later, having scrubbed the snow off his face. Think of a gift yet? The redhead asked. I only am just starting to wake up all the way, Alistair. I haven't even had enough time to even think about what you like. Raphael replied dreamily, getting up. There are numerous ways you can go about this. You can Google your problem or go and ask her brother. You should probably go with her brother, since Google doesn't know Sky as well as he does. It's a start. Don't worry, I'll think of something. Alistair nodded and headed out of the room, with Raphael following behind him minutes later. As they reached the kitchen table, where Sky was already munching on some cereal, a snow-covered Valen and Amber entered the house. Morning, fellas, the Australian chirped. Sky stood up immediately, her chair scraping against the tiles as she slapped her hands on the table. No, both of you march right back outside and take your clothes off in the garage. I don't want to mop up water in here. Sheesh, how old are they again? Asked Alistair irritably as the two stepped back outside. 17 and 19. I thought they would know better now, Sky muttered, shaking her head. Keep in mind that we're talking about Valen, Raphael started, and Amber has an incredibly unique personality. On to other matters, though. Have you two gotten Christmas shopping done? Alistair nodded. Yeah, I did it a few days ago. What about you, Sky? She gave them a thumbs up, but glared at Alistair. You're a hard one to shop for, you know, she complained, poking the redhead in the chest. How about you, Raphael? I'm almost done, he said, getting up and setting his empty coffee mug on the counter. There's just one person that I have to shop for. That's cool, she replied, putting her bowl in the sink. When she turned back, it was to find that the red-haired biker had left the room. He's sneaky. Who, Alistair? Yeah, he could make a ninja proud, So, who you're shopping for? Raphael froze, realizing that he could not very well tell her who he was thinking of. Well, I was thinking of getting my aunt something, he lied quickly, hoping Sky would not notice the split-second hesitation. I have no idea what to get her, though. Oh, Sky replied, looking doubtful. Well, how about some sort of jewelry, like a necklace or something? Or if you have no idea what she'll like, get her something that relates to her personality. Raphael sighed. I guess that'll work. Well, I'm taking Jasper for a walk. See you later, she said as she left the kitchen, leaving Raphael behind to mull over his thoughts silently. Chapter 6. Alistair, a Sparkly Vampire? Valen, what the hell are you watching? Alistair asked, coming from upstairs and into the living room. A movie about vampires, he said, reaching into the bowl of popcorn that was currently on Amber's lap. We've watched the prequel already. And why is she still here? Free country girly man. Free country girly man, she replied, eating a handful of popcorn. Alistair merely scolded and stormed off into the kitchen. Just as he vanished, Sky walked through the front door, having returned from another walk with Jasper. When her eyes landed on the television, her eyes widened in horror. My eyes, they bleed! She screamed, shielding her eyes as Jasper ran into the kitchen with his leash following behind. What's going on? Raphael asked, coming down the stairs in sweat pants and a tank top. Why is Sky screaming? They're watching New Moon. The only movie that's worse than that one was the one that came before it. She groaned, now removing her hands from her face in an attempt to block the movie from her sight. This, unfortunately, resulted in her walking straight into a wall when she tried to leave the room. Would you relax, Sky? It's almost over with, Amber retorted, throwing a pillow at the fallen girl. Thank God. What will possess you to do this? She asked, shaking her head and opening her eyes. We watch it to make fun of it, came the distracted reply. Sky shook her head, deciding it was best that she did not know what sort of logic went through Amber's and Valen's minds. A shadow fell over her, and she looked up to find that Raphael was offering her his hand to help her up. Thanks, she said gratefully, accepting his offer. He smiled in response and gently tucked her to her feet. You're welcome. It's a crappy series, but you have to admit that Taylor Lautner is smoking hot, Amber squealed. He's so yummy. Valen looked at the girl back to the screen where a shirtless guy was currently standing, and then mumbled something about needing to hit the gym more. How's that gift hunting going, Raphael? Alistair asked, coming out of the kitchen. It's going well, Alistair, Raphael replied grudgingly, not wanting to talk about the subject in front of Sky. When Alistair made eye contact with him, he shot him an irritated look. The redhead pointedly ignored it as he looked at the television, a curious expression flickering on his face. Isn't this the series that has the sparkling fairies? No, that would be that stupid Tinkerbell show, Amber retorted. I know that, Digit. Is this the series with the emo Twinkle Twinkle vampire rejects in it? Oh, yeah, that's it. Why are you calling them that, though? They're vampires to me. You'd be wrong, said Sky bluntly. Vampires sleep during the day to day one. 2, even if they did go out into the sunlight, you'd need to go get an ashtray. They turn to dust if exposed to even the teeniest bit of sunlight. Finally, they most definitely don't drink animal blood. Valen tilted his head curiously. What makes you so sure?" "Because I'm one," Sky announced, smiling and revealing her suddenly sharp canines. Valen did a double take and then screamed, bolting out of the room and stumbling up the stairs in a panicked run. Sky giggled, reaching up to her mouth and pulling a weird contraption from behind her teeth. "I knew these spring-loaded fangs would come in handy one day," she laughed, setting them down on the table. Raphael shook his head, looking over at where Valen was, peering uncertainly from behind the doorframe. "She was just kidding, Valen. She's not really a vampire." "I knew that," Valen muttered under his breath, coming back down the stairs and sitting next to Amber once again. He glanced over at Alistair and frowned. "You know what I just realized?" "What?" "What? Amber's right. Alistair could pass off as one of those vampires." Alistair bristled when everyone around him nodded in agreement, his eyes narrowing when a few laughs started going around. "I do not look like one of them." "Keep telling yourself that, girly man," said Amber with a shrug, looking unconvinced. Chapter 7. Presents, and kitty trackers. "Merry Christmas, Skylar!" Sky let out a startled scream, accidentally kicking Jasper off the bed in her alarm. Groaning as she recognized the voice, she looked up at a familiar teenager with murder in her eyes. "I will kill you if it's before 7. 6:59's close enough. Now get up," sang the Australian cheerfully, already bouncing out of the room. Likelihood was high that he was going to wake up his older friends, although he could be going downstairs for all she knew. "Come on, mate, hurry up!" Mumbling to herself, she stretched and slipped out of bed and patted a disgruntled Jasper on his head. "Sorry, boy, I can't always keep the craziest out of here," she sighed, standing straight up again. She caught a glimpse of her wild mane of hair in her dresser mirror and grimaced, picked up the nearest brush. She set about taming her bed hair with a few practiced strokes of the brush and pulled it back up into a ponytail. A startled yelp made her look to her bedroom door sharply in surprise, but then she sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. She recognized the irritated voice that had started yelling. It was coming from Alistair's room, and it didn't take too much to figure out who he was yelling at. "When will that boy learn?" she said, leaving her room and wandering out in the hallway to investigate. Valen was sprawled at the foot of the stairs, groaning and holding his head in pain. Alistair was standing at the top of the stairs and glaring venomously at the boy, holding what appeared to be a dictionary. "What have I told you about waking me up?" he growled. "It's Christmas, chum. Lighten up," said Valen, sitting up and grinning cheekily up at them. "Come on, you two. Quit being such Scrooges. I'll Scrooge you if you wake me up this early ever again," Alistair retorted as he began going down the stairs, passing Valen without a backward glance. The teenager followed behind him, rubbing his head and muttering under his breath. Sky patted down to follow after Alistair as well. When the three of them got down there, they found Raphael watching the news with Misha curled up in his lap. "Do I even want to know what happened? I heard 2 bangs coming from upstairs and a lot of screaming." "You don't," said Alistair and Sky together. Valen came into the room and stopped, his eyes widening in surprise. "Whoa, what happened in here?" he asked, startled. The others looked around as well and received a surprise. Someone had decorated the room with a Christmas theme in mind. There was a tree standing right next to the fireplace, its multicolored lights twinkling merrily. 4 stockings hung from a makeshift mantel, various decorations also adorning the shelf. I didn't even notice, Raphael said in equal surprise, looking around him as well. The 3 other bikers looked at him mutely. Raphael raised his coffee mug at them with an exasperated expression. What part of not a morning person don't you guys understand? I just got this coffee a few minutes ago. Do you guys like what I did with the place? Sky asked, clapping her hands behind her back with a wide smile. I wasn't sure what I was doing at first, but then I got the hang of it. Looks nice. Good job. All the girly stuff you wanna hear. Present time, Bella announced, diving towards the small pile of presents at the base of the tree. Shaking her head, Sky moved over to the sofa and sat herself down. Alistair joined her moments later. Raphael stayed where he was comfortably situated in the recliner, watching the proceedings with a faintly amused expression. When he noticed the Australian shifting through the presents, though, he set his coffee mug down. Coming at ya! Yelled Valen, tossing an unwrapped package at the blonde biker. Raphael caught the present in mid-air, having already expected the tossed package. He learned the hard way back in Doma that it was in best interest if one paid attention to Valen at Christmas. He eyed the poorly wrapped present with fond exasperation before unwrapping it. When he finished, he found 2 books lying in his lap. So this is why you asked me that one question. 20,000 leagues under the sea and to kill a mockingbird. Thanks, Valen. You're welcome, replied Valen absently as he tossed Alistair a package. Unfortunately, the red-haired man had not been paying attention to his surroundings, and the present hit him in the side of his head. Damn you, Valen. Would it hurt you to watch where you're throwing things? You gotta watch me better, Jam. I'm not looking out after you all the time. Alistair rolled his eyes as he began unwrapping his own haphazardly wrapped present. He raised an eyebrow in interest when he noticed the first 3 seasons of Criminal Minds sitting on his lap, looking to Valen for an explanation. You seem to fancy all that crime stuff, and I figured that you would like this. Now you don't have to watch reruns when you miss an episode, explained Valen, picking up a different present and tossing it to Sky. The girl looked up from playing with Misha in time to dodge the flying package that was hurtling towards her. She picked up the package, shaking it experimentally, before continuing to eye it warily. It's not going to explode, is it? She asked. I'm not that bad. What do you take me for? A moron, Alistair answered promptly. Ignoring the beginning of Alistair's and Valen's latest argument, she began to unwrap the present. It took her a few seconds to digest what was now sitting on her lap, but when she did, her eyes rounded to the size of saucers. Oh my God! Valen, how did you find these? She asked faintly, her eyes lighting up. I have my ways, replied the teenager, smirking as he gathered the next set of presents. What did you get her? Raphael asked as Alistair leaned over and peered onto her lap. Oh no! Valen, why did you do that? Alistair asked in horror. All 3 seasons of Invader Zim? Really? What's the problem? She likes that series. Yeah, but haven't you listened to that little robot thing when it talks? It's freaking annoying. So? It's too much like you on a sugar high, Valen, grumbled Alistair irritably, earning a laugh from Sky. Valen muttered incoherently as he looked under the tree and pulled out a small grouping of presents. "Looks like these are all from Sky. Here, Alistair, this one's for you," he called, tossing the redhead another present. This time, Alistair got the front package without trouble and began slowly opening it. Valen, meanwhile, went back to unwrapping his own gift. His eyes lit up and he peered into the now exposed box. Inside it were all sorts of items that pranksters will delight in. "Really, Sky?" Alistair and Raphael asked in unison when they realized just what Sky had given Valen. "What? I figure we need someone to entertain us," she shrugged, giving the boys her signature Cheshire cat grin. Rolling his eyes, Alistair opened his gift. He was staring face to face with an autographed picture signed by the actor who plays Agent Booth in Bones, as well as the first 2 complete seasons of Bones. "Thanks, Guy," he said, looking fairly pleased. At least until he saw what was under the DVDs. "I'm not a vampire, damn you," he snarled, throwing the Twilight book at her. She narrowly dodged it and then stuck her tongue out at him. "Gag gifts make the world go round, Alistair. Lighten up," she replied brightly, picking up the book. Raphael finished unwrapping his own present from Sky and eyed the iTouch and $10 iTunes gift card appreciatively. "I can use this when I'm driving to work. Thank you, Skylar." "You're welcome," she replied, turning a faint shade of pink. "Hey, Alistair actually got us gifts," Valen yelled, tossing the presents to Raphael and Sky before tearing into his own present. Raphael thanked Alistair gratefully when he saw what Alistair had gotten him. Whenever he got stressed out, he tended to listen to classical music, and Alistair had given him several CDs that he could transfer the songs onto his new iTouch. Valen, meanwhile, opened up his gift from Alistair and held up a tick in between his fingers. He looked at Alistair with confused, cerulent eyes. "You got me a book. Have you ever seen me read, chum? Ever?" "You didn't bother reading the cover, did you?" the redhead asked wildly. "If you did, you wouldn't be saying that." The boy considered this before flipping the book over and reading the cover. His eyes widened incredulously. "A prank book?" "Yes, and thankfully there are no explosions involved in any of them," he replied as a frown came onto his face. Pull any of them on me, and I swear that I will throw you out of the 2nd-story window. You can use the book to pull pranks on the neighbors, including Amber." "I wouldn't try to do that to Amber, though. She's crazier than I am." Alistair scoffed. "What, you think I'm kidding?" asked Valen in disbelief. "I'll have to see it to believe it first. Sky, aren't you going to open up your present?" I'm going, she grumbled, crumpling the wrapping paper into a small ball and tossing it carelessly on the floor. Misha instantly leaped for it, beginning to pat at it with her paws. She watched Misha for a little longer until Alistair cleared his throat impatiently, and she let out a small huff as she looked down at what lay on her lap. There was a notebook filled with music manuscript paper, a pack of new guitar strings, a guitar strap with neon green and pink stars on it, and a small gear plushie. Thank you so much, Alistair. I needed more paper and strings. You're welcome, he replied, looking at Misha, who had swatted the wrapping paper ball to his feet. But how did you know I play guitar? I have my ways, little girl, he said mysteriously. Little? I'm older than you by a year and a half, she said, sticking her tongue out at him. Alistair shrugged dismissively. If we're talking in terms of height, You are. It's time for Raphael's gifts, Ellen exclaimed, cutting over the beginnings of Sky's retort and tossing a present to the red-haired biker. I don't see one for you, Sky, he said apologetically. It's coming in later on today, Raphael explained, glancing at Sky with a sheepish smile. Valen and Alistair wrapped their own gifts from their oldest friend, missing the look he'd given Sky. Alistair found several crime scene-related computer games for his computer in his present, and Valen got a brand new pair of motorcycle goggles. Valen was about to thank the blonde when Amber came rolling out of the fireplace, wearing a slightly baggy Santa suit and floppy hat, a leather sack hung off her shoulder. Ho, 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 she said loudly, brushing off the soot on her clothes. Merry Christmas! Alistair stared. All right, Valen, you may be right. Amber plopped down next to Valen, dropping the sack onto the floor. I brought gifts, she announced, passing out 4 suspiciously lumpy presents. Alistair, Raphael, and Sky opened their gifts with some reservation, and they found that their trepidation was relatively justified. Explosives? Asked 3 voices in unified horror. Yep, open yours, Valen, said Amber with a whine, poking Valen's shoulder instantly. Valen looked at the gift cautiously, but opened it anyway. He looked up at the girl with confusion in his face as he held up a small watch. A kitty tracker? He guessed. It's so you can find your cat, beamed Amber, her grin scratched from ear to ear. Amber reached into her bag and offered a Red Bull to Valen, but Raphael quickly took it away. It's bad enough when you drink Mountain Dew. No way are you getting a Red Bull, he said sternly. The 4 of them and Amber sat in the room for a bit until Valen announced he was hungry. Before he went to grab something out of the kitchen, he reached under the tree to make sure that there was no gift left unopened, and his hand encountered a wrapped package, and he pulled it out confused. Sky, did you get a gift for the 3 of us? He asked, putting 2 and 2 together and lifting the gift so that both Alistair and Raphael could see it. I did, actually. It's technically to all of us, but it's mostly for you 3, she replied with a warm smile. The bikers exchanged confused glances before Raphael nodded to Valen, who took a corner of the paper and carefully tore it off. The 3 of them gathered around to see what the girl had given them. Valen was holding a wood and gold leaf picture frame in his hand, confusing them until they saw what the picture was, and it was nothing they were expecting. The photograph had been taken back when the 4 of them had been in Doma. It had been for some evening party or another, since there had been many of them Darth had required them to attend. They were all sitting in the lobby of some hotel. Raphael was on the right of the couch, wearing a simple dark blue short-sleeved turtleneck sweater. Alistair was on the left, wearing a maroon-colored long-sleeved shirt and a barely discernible smile on his face. Valen was sitting on the floor, wearing a green long-sleeved shirt, grinning widely, and Sky was sitting on the right armrest next to Raphael, wearing a short black spaghetti-striped dress with red polka dots. How did you get this? Asked Alistair, looking to Sky with an unreadable expression on his face. I saved it. Gurimo had the proofs to the pictures that were taken at that party, and I managed to get it out of the stack before he tossed them out. I found it the other day, figured that it would be nice to have a group picture in the living room. All 3 of the men looked at Sky moodily for a moment, and then at some hidden signal, they converged on Sky and enveloped her in a group hug. Even Alistair hugged her, though he held on for only a couple of seconds and then backed away. The doorbell rang and interrupted the moment. Raphael disentangled from the hug to answer it. A few minutes later, he returned to the room, a brown package in his hand. "Delivery man, Sky, can I talk to you?" he asked, looking over Sky's head at Alistair pointedly. The slender man caught on. "Let's go test out this kitty tracker and see if Raggedy Ann actually made something that works," he said, dragging them both upstairs and leaving the other two alone in the room. "What's up?" she asked, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "Your gift came in the mail," he said, handing her the box, and then suddenly looking away when she took it from him. She opened it and reached inside, removing a small velvet box. Looking at Raphael with confusion, she carefully opened it. When she saw the freshly polished gold locket sitting inside, she gasped in surprise and looked at Raphael for an explanation. "This was my mother's locket," he started, still not quite meeting her eyes. "My dad gave it to my mom right before they got married. It's one of the few things I have left of her." Sky's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, wow," she breathed. She looked up at Raphael with a small concerned frown. "You should keep it. It's your mother's, and—" "I want you to have it," he insisted. "But why?" she asked. "Well, for one, I certainly can wear it," said Raphael dreamily, gesturing to himself. He saw a giggle from Sky as she agreed, and he took it as a sign to continue. The blonde seemed to hesitate for just a second before he cleared his throat. "My dad once told me that I should do something similar for someone I like," he said, finally making eye contact with her. Sky blinked, something of comprehension lighting her eyes. "I like you too, Raphael, but I still don't see what this has to do with anything," she said slowly, although there was something in her voice that told him she knew exactly what he was talking about. Raphael said nothing, allowing Sky to digest what he was asking her. When realization dawned on her face, she twisted her shirt anxiously for a moment before looking up at him with worried hazel eyes. "Raphael, I really like you, and is there some way we can just wait and see?" she asked, a slightly desperate expression on her face. "Can we just stay friends for a little longer? I... The blonde gave no indication of his current emotions. "Of course, Sky, I can give you time. Either way, though, you can't have my mother's necklace. As I said before, I can't wear it." Sky nodded slowly. "I'll take good care of it," she promised, as she clutched the locker close to her chest, feeling awkward as she shifted uncomfortably in place. There was a thick and tense silence before Sky cleared her throat and muttered an excuse to leave, disappearing from the room and leaving Raphael behind her. She was incredibly grateful that she had to turn her back on the blonde as she left, because otherwise he would have seen the tears beginning to gather in her eyes. Phew, man, this story is pretty long. I mean, I've just read 7 chapters, something that I've never done before to any other stories I've read. I've read for now. I've read until today. So it's kind of my first time when I'm making a long video like this one. But I hope you guys will still enjoy this story. And if you did, please subscribe. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications, because the next part will be coming very soon to you. Until then, I'll see you guys soon. Bye!